Hey guys, TommyBryson here, and I love making videos about things that everyone is supposed to do, but in reality, not everyone is actually supposed to do it, and it depends on exactly who you are and where you are, okay? For example, everyone is supposed to go ahead and buy a house. Everyone's supposed to go to college. Everyone's supposed to get a job, right? But in reality, that's not always the case, and it depends exactly on who you are and what you actually want. So this video right here is all about, are you supposed to go ahead and buy a house, or you're not supposed to? And how do you find out? And on top of that, if you are going to buy a house, how do you make sure you actually buy a house the right way and not the wrong way? And it becomes basically like a prison, a cage. That's not what you want. Now, while making this video, it reminded me of this book I've been reading currently, okay? And the idea is that in this book, the author talks about a crab. Now, in the ocean, there are these crabs, guys, that are so smart to the point where it is very hard to actually catch them, to the point where they have like human instincts in a way, right? Very hard to catch them. However, how is it possible that every single day fishermen catch thousands and thousands of them, okay? And by the way, Tommy, what are you talking about here? The answer is, trust me, give me a second here. This right here is going to make sense, okay? Now, how do you go ahead and catch a crab when crabs are so smart? Well, I want to show you guys this picture right here of the trap they actually use, okay? The trap is like this, okay? It's like this cage, and you only have two ways to get inside from each side, okay? The circles right there with the arrows, that's where they go inside and actually come inside from. So it's very easy to come inside, but it's also very easy to actually leave. And on top of that, they put the bait right in the middle. So while that crab is eating, what do you guys think actually happened, okay? And by the way, you know, every single year they catch a bunch of those crabs, okay? But it's very easy for them to just go ahead and climb out and get out, okay? And by the way, that little box you see at the top, that's basically the bait, and that's how they eat. But I want to tell you guys a little story here, okay? Guess what? When one crab goes in that box, okay, in that cage, it's very easy for him to get out. But because he's not endangered, he's eating bait, he continues to eat. And then when another crab comes in and says, hey, this guy's eating in there, let me go also and get something to eat. So another crab comes in, then another one, then another one, then to the point where there is no more bait, but the crabs stay there together, okay? That's how crazy it is. And on top of that, more crabs come in, even though they don't see any bait, because basically everyone else is there. Kind of like a party, everyone's there, so why wouldn't I go in there, okay? Now, when everyone comes in, guys, okay, and a ton of crabs are in there, guess what happens when one crab realizes that, hey, maybe I don't want to be here. Maybe this is a trap, okay? Maybe I want to escape. And by the way, it's easy for them to escape, okay? The answer is, when that crab tries to leave, the other crabs pull him down. Just like that. The first time, they pull him down. The second time, they grab him and tear his claws off. The third time, they might even go ahead and murder that crab, okay? Now, why does that happen? Because in reality, they're trying to ensure that everyone gets the same results no matter what. On top of that, trying to ensure that no one leaves, because basically, they're all in this together. The same thing happens in human society with us. The only thing is that basically, thankfully, we're not crabs, and thankfully, your parents are not gonna grab you and tear your limbs off, okay? That's actually a great thing. But in reality, whenever you're trying to be the person to make a difference or go a different route, everyone is going to try to pull you back. Not with physical force, but usually with words. Hey, don't do that. Go to college. Hey, don't do that. You're wasting money on rent. Go buy a house. Hey, don't do that. Go get a real job, okay? You know, everyone does that exact same thing. So when you think about leaving this cage and going out there and becoming successful, the answer is, don't be mad at your parents or your friends. In reality, they're just reflecting onto you what they kind of reflect onto themselves, okay? Like, I didn't go out there and do this. I don't want you to go out there and take this risk, okay? But you gotta go out there and do what's best for you. And sometimes what the rest of the people actually do, that's not what's best for you. The average person is just basically in debt, student loan debt, normal job, doesn't like it. Is that what you want? Usually the answer is no, okay? And usually the most popular things out there are not always the best. The most popular restaurant in the world is McDonald's. Is that good for you? The answer is no. So also, the most popular things to do are not always going to be the best. And that's why sometimes you have to go out there and take your own route. And sometimes people are gonna pull you back, but the answer is you go ahead and keep going. And by the way, guys, I stole that story from a book I'm reading currently called The Entrepreneur your roller coaster. I highly recommend, if you're interested, go ahead and read this book right here. It's very good so far, and I'll probably make a review on it very soon, okay guys? But if you guys are new here, guys, I post videos every single day, so you should also subscribe and hit the bell to stay notified, and on top of that, also destroying the like button. Now, there's only 2 reasons I can give you to why you might not want to buy a house and why it might not be the best idea. And the first thing is basically rent versus buy. There's actually a calculator online that tells you exactly, hey, which one is better, which one is cheaper over the long term. And by the way, the answer is not always, by the way, I said this all the time. If you are renting, in reality, you must be stupid, because in reality, you're grabbing all this money and throwing it in the garbage, in a deep black hole, because you're losing all your money. You're not building anything. So the best thing you can do is basically go ahead and buy a house and build up equity in this house, right? Because guess what? That's equity. You're building it up, right? That's awesome. But guess what? That's not that simple. That's not always going to be true. It all depends on basically where you live, what your income is, what your goals are, how old you are, what do you want to do in the future, okay? So it's not always that simple whatsoever. It's not always, hey, everyone does it like the crabs in the trap. No. The answer is you want to stop and think about, is this best for me? If it's not, then it's not good for you. Now, the answer is, guys, you want to go out there and use a calculator, a rent versus buy calculator. And by the way, guys, okay, my auntie, you know, God bless her soul, she's not here anymore. But the answer is, you know, she rented for around 20 years. And I thought that was such a bad idea. But was it though? Is it a bad idea to rent for so long? The answer is, again, it depends. It's not always a yes or no answer. Sometimes it's more complicated than that, okay? So right now, guys, let's go use a calculator online, okay? Now, here's what I want you guys to do, okay? Head over to Google and type in rent versus buy calculator. And then you will click the link that says rent versus buy calculator by Smart Assets. So click this link right here, and then you want to go ahead and fill in all of the information here. Now, my aunt at the time was living in New York in the Bronx for the past 20 to 25 years. But now, let's assume she could have bought a house in the year 2000, or for example, rented for a long time. Now, again, living in the Bronx, rented for $1,000. Let's put in $1,000 right here. On top of that, let's say that house is going to cost around $350,000 back in the year 2000 in New York, okay? Now, by the way, the down payment would be around $70,000 for a 20% down payment. On top of that, between her husband and her, they were not making more than $50,000, maybe even less, okay? Because again, a very low income family. Now, what exactly does this mean here? It means that basically, if she rented for 23 years, it still would have been cheaper than actually buying a house, okay? In the first 23 years, or for example, in the first 20 years, she would have spent $291,000 on rent versus buying a house spending around $302,000. Now, Tommy, I get this, but at least you would have had equity build up. The answer is yes, but in reality, remember this, you guys, if you are a low-income family, how do you save up $70K for a down payment? How do you save for the closing costs? How do you save for all this stuff? So the math says right here, for the first 20 years, renting would have been cheaper. So in reality, although I might have said back then, hey, this was stupid, it wasn't stupid. It was actually a great plan actually done by accident, okay? Now, imagine living in Manhattan, right? Manhattan, New York, okay? You rent for $2,000 or you buy an apartment for $1 million. Which one is cheaper? Which one do you do? The answer is obviously you want to rent. So the obvious point is basically it's not always a good idea to go out there and buy a property. So you want to get that out your head, because although it is a conditioned idea, the answer is it is not always a great idea. The only person that wants that is the bank that wants you to pay them a bunch of money in interest, okay? So keep that in mind here. Now again, I'm doing this to tell you guys basically the answer is not always that obvious. You're not always going to want to go ahead and buy a home. It's not always going to be the best decision ever, okay? In reality, sometimes you want to go ahead and just, for example, rent for a while you get to know the area, get to know the prices, and on top of that, save all the money you actually need. This way you're actually prepared. But the answer is you don't always want to go ahead and buy a home because basically you might not be ready. That's the idea. And by the way, in 8 years, it means, for example, I can save up for that down payment, right? Although I can already have it now, the answer is in 8 years, I can save up $70,000 divided by 8 years, divided, for example, by 12. It means that I can save up like 730 every single month and have that money ready. That way, when I buy a house, I'm really ready. And this way, I wasn't just, for example, wasting money, because the last thing you want to do is basically buy a house when you're not ready. And that's going to be a massive problem. And that's why the second reason why you don't want to go ahead and buy a house, it might just be because basically you're not ready, okay? You're not ready to go ahead and buy a house. And you don't want to hear this advice from basically the banker, the lender, your mom, your dad, your family, your friends, because usually the banker and the lenders want to lend you money. Your friends and family just want the best for you, although, like the crabs in that cage, it might not be the best for you. Just stick to whatever they actually did, okay? That's the idea there. So imagine this, guys, okay? We live in a world where when you go to school, they can lend you up to 100 to 500K in student loan debt, although you don't even have one job, although you might not even finish, although you might graduate and might not get a job. Why? Because basically they want to lend you money because they know for a fact that the government is going to basically back up that loan, and that's why they do it, okay? So just because you can do something, the answer is it does not mean it's the right decision for you to actually go ahead and make. So Tommy, how do I know I'm ready to go ahead and buy a home? The answer is, the first question is, am I ready for things to go wrong? Tommy, what does that mean here? I don't want to prepare for the worst, right? The answer is you got to prepare for the worst, because basically the worst is going to happen at some point. It is going to happen and you want to be ready. So you want to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of emergencies in case anything goes wrong, including the mortgage and all of your expenses. For example, if I buy this home, I'm going to be spending around $2,000 every single month, including, for example, an extra $1,000 for my expenses, okay? So that means that my monthly expenses are around $3,000. It means that I want to have, multiplied by 3, I want to have $9K on the side in case I lose my job, in case I break my leg, in case I can't work, in case I get fired. This way, if anything happens, I'm good to go, I'm prepared. Or for example, if you're very conservative, you might want to have maybe $3,000 times 6. This way you have 6 months to figure out everything. This way you're more safe, you know, you're more conservative, and you want to make sure everything is good for at least 6 months. This way you can bounce back and everything is going to be fine. So that's the first thing you want to have, an emergency fund. This way when things go wrong, you're ready. On top of that, the second thing you want is, do you have a 20% down payment? And on top of that, do you have the closing cost for the property? You know, I remember, for example, my professor told me, Tommy, when you buy a house, you gotta find that money anywhere. No, the answer is when you buy a house, you want to be prepared for this stuff. This way, you're good to go, okay? So the answer is, do you have 20% down for this property? Again, okay, houses are very expensive. So if you buy, for example, like me, a 350K property, multiplied by 20%, that's going to be around $70,000. That is a lot of money. So do you have all this money to go ahead and buy this property? And on top of that, the closing costs are around like 5%. So you also need that money there too. So multiplied by 0.05%, that's also $17,500. Plus the down payment of 70K, that means, okay, not 700K, but that means I would need around $87,500 to make sure I'm fully ready for that house. Now, if I save that money up over a 8-year period, okay, divided by 8, it's not that much money. It's only around 10 to 11K every single year. This way, when you buy it, you're fully ready. And by the way, when you put down a large down payment, it means basically you avoid mortgage insurance, very expensive. On top of that, it means also you have a lower payment every single month. On top of that, means basically when you buy this property, you can pay it off a lot faster. The goal is not to go 30 years paying for a property. The goal is you buy this property, you try to pay it off very fast. This way you own it and your expenses are very low, so you can go ahead and have more fun, or for example, invest more money or do whatever you want to do. But you don't want to have a 30-year mortgage. You're like 20 now, you're 50. If you're 30, you're 60. If you're 40, you're 70. And you finally paid off the house. The answer is that's not what you want, okay? It's not a good idea. And the last question you want to ask yourself, guys, is basically, do I know what my budget actually is? If the answer is no, then you're obviously not ready, because basically the bank will lend you a ton of money. Again, they love making money, so why not lend you a bunch of money? This way you pay them more money, okay? The answer is usually you want to basically buy a house not going to cost you more than 33% of your monthly income. So for example, if you make 5K every single month, you don't want to spend more than 33%, which basically means around $1,650 is actually your budget, including the mortgage, the taxes, insurance, HOA fee, or for example, also the maintenance on the property. This way, you have a lot of free income for other stuff. Meaning, my house costs $1,650, that's it. But in reality, I still have, for example, $3,350 to take care of everything else, and on top of that, pay extra towards the mortgage. That way, I am done a lot faster, okay? So that's the goal. Although the bank might lend you a ton more money, the answer is you don't want that, because in reality, it is going to be a headache. It is going to be a trap, and that's why you see, for example, very successful people with very expensive houses they can't afford, with cars they don't own, with things they don't own, with a bunch of debt that you actually don't want, and they have to work that job, because if they don't, they lose everything. That is not what's best, and that's not what I think I want either, and that's why that's not what I'm following, although that is a normal way to get things done, okay? And guys, honestly, that's about it. The true reasons why you might not want to buy a house, okay? You're not ready, or for example, it might be better to just go ahead and rent versus buy. You want to go ahead and run the numbers. And overall, if you ask me, guys, okay, the answer is you got to be patient, okay? Just be patient, save the money, and then buy it when you're ready. That's the goal here. And also make sure you actually want to buy a house in the first place, okay? I'm only going to buy a house when I'm ready to go ahead and start a family with my wife then, to actually, you know, have kids and stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm just going to grab my money now and keep investing and investing and investing, okay? That's my goal for currently. However, you know, remember, okay, we live in a country where you borrow a ton of money for student loan debt, although you might not be able to pay it back. On top of that, the good thing to do is to buy a house you can't afford. The good thing to do is to also work a job you might not even like. The answer is, you know, the normal thing might not be the best thing. If you find yourself in a cage, in a trap, the answer is just slowly work yourself out of that cage. The answer is we're not crabs. No one's going to murder you, but you know, people are going to try to hold you back, so you want to be prepared for that also. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Comment down below and let me know also, when do you want to buy a house? Why do you want to buy a house? And what is your budget? Okay, answer all the questions, okay? And comment down below. This way I know you know, and this way you know exactly that you know that you're actually ready, or maybe not ready, okay? Comment down below, let me know. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and as always, like this video if you liked it. On top of that, if you're new here, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified. And if you want to text me or talk to me one-on-one, join my Patreon, link down below, or send me a DM on Instagram at TommyBryson. And on top of that, before I go, if you want to watch a full video on a full plan for financial freedom, here's the video right here, and click my face right now. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace.